Better, but not great.
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what do you say, Seattle hockey fans? Welcome to another episode of Locked On Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we bring you your favorite team every single day. My name is Erica L. Ayala, your host of Locked On Kraken. Also cover the WNBA, ergo the Seattle Storm, whose season has come to an end for CBS Sports. But want to let you know that today's episode of Locked On Kraken brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Where we're going to get started is talking about Tuesday night's game against the Vancouver Canucks in the cold open, effectively remixing what we heard from head coach Dan Bylsma. Better, but still not great. What we liked about this was the 5-on-5 effort. What we didn't like about this is that the Seattle Kraken weren't on at even strength, for as much of the game as they wanted. Now, just to put it into context, when the Seattle Kraken played the Calgary Flames on, what was that? The other day, 21 penalty minutes for the Calgary Flames to 13 penalty minutes for the Seattle Kraken. In Vancouver, it was almost the exact opposite. 26 penalty minutes for the Seattle Kraken, 18 penalty minutes for the Vancouver Canucks. What was similar about both nights is that a big goose egg on the power play and our opposition on the season. So a combined average of the two, 33% or 2 of 12 for on as far as the opposition, and this, I guess, is something that we'll take, combined between Vancouver and Calgary, 2 of 12 on the power play for the opposition. So better, but not great. The Seattle Kraken have this balancing act, and we talked a little bit about it on Tuesdays, or on Monday's episode, a little bit. So Sunday was the game. Anyway, a little bit of a balancing act between knowing that you have to get your special teams engaged. That's the best way to practice. We heard that from Dan Bylsma after Tuesday night's game, but then also the discipline. In game one, the physicality wasn't what Bylsma wanted because we were not initiating. The Kraken were not initiating the contact. On Tuesday night, it was a little bit of being smart. There was even a penalty on Joy Decord for playing the puck outside of the trapezoid. And so those are just mental errors, refinements that can be made, not the end all be all, not the end of the world, so to speak, in the preseason, and habits and discipline that you want to see the Seattle Kraken have moving forward. So I think that's absolutely fair to be thoughtful and mindful of the fact that, again, better, but not great. On the screen, I have some of the stats that I've just gone over for you verbally. Again, the penalty minutes kind of stands out to me. 23 hits laid by the Vancouver Canucks, 19 by the Kraken. Block shots, 15 for the Kraken, 11 for the Canucks. 17 giveaways and 10 takeaways for Vancouver. 11 giveaways, 7 takeaways for the Seattle Kraken. Mentioned Joey Decord, did see good action like we expected the first 2 periods, and then it was actually Stedska coming in again. So looks like that's probably Stedska going to be someone that we see take over in Coachella Valley. Not expecting that he'll fight for a spot between Joey Daccord and Grubauer. Joey Daccord, 895 save percentage. Gruby's was a 789. I talked about it the other day, earlier in the week, but didn't like that we were leaving Gruby out to dry. With Joey Daccord, there were some tic-tac-toe passes, just good passes. I'd have to look a little again. I was double dipping watching the WNBA. I think overall, this came more down to you put yourself in a bad spot, not at even strength, but because you're on the penalty kill. And that shows in the numbers. Both Stecka and Daccord were perfect at even strength. Well, Stecka also was able to be perfect on the power play. A better third period also by the Seattle Kraken. But 7 of 9 on the power play for Joey Dax. One was just a really fantastic tic-tac-toe play. If I wanted to break down, I think it was the first goal against Joey Daccord. There is still a little bit of getting caught wandering. And Alexiak had the near post covered, but once again, you need either that other defender or, well, it was a power play. So you need that forward, kind of roaming forward to come down a little bit more. I just felt it's super nitpicky. Not everyone loves defense the way I do. And it's something that I've noticed from the Kraken a lot. We wander, we're a little too high up, and you have to really pack it in when you're on the penalty kill. So, too much time, too much space effectively was given to Vancouver. And I think these are things that the Seattle Kraken and that Dan Bylsma know. Allison Lucan got Bylsma to confirm that he did not talk to the players, at least not immediately after the game and before talking to media. But the Seattle Kraken will hit the ice Wednesday. And curious what buttons, Dan Bylsma wants to press, so to speak. And this goes back to something that we talked about earlier in the week. He didn't like the effort in Sunday's game. And those are things that he wants to be able to control and to reinforce. And so there will be a practice, a skate on Wednesday, and we'll kind of see what adjustments the Seattle Kraken are making when it comes to that. And I do think there were some bright spots. Again, better, but not great. And we're going to talk about those in a little bit, specifically when it comes to what I thought was the most impressive line in the game against the Vancouver Canucks. Today's episode of Locked On Kraken brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. And if you are an NFL fan, then this message is for you, because you can start this season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, views, live play-by-play, and so much more on the same exact page where you would place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first ever $5 bet. Now, if you're looking for an easy bet, how many wins? 87.5. You're taking the over-under for that for the Seattle Kraken. What about the future bets? Kraken finishing 5th in the division? ? I don't think we know the answer just yet, but if you're feeling a hunch, go check it out over at FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com. And again, just make sure that you are engaging responsibly over at FanDuel. Thanks as always for making Locked On Kraken a part of your daily destination. Erica L. Ayala here, your host of Locked On Kraken, also the founder of Black Rosie Media. We just had our first ever live in-person podcast, and it was at Rough and Tumble, and we had a good old time. And it's something that I now want to do here for Locked On Kraken. So stay tuned for that. We have, of course, the preseason. We have a few things that we can do. We have a new contributor, Zame, who's going to help out on the episodes that air on the channel on Thursdays. So lots of potential here. Super excited. Thanks for everyone who came out and or was able to watch on our live stream on YouTube, patched to YouTube and IG Live. So more things to come, including, I think, what's really exciting for Kraken fans. If you're an everydayer or an OGer, then you know. I don't like us putting all of the offensive eggs in the Berkey basket. That being said, the strongest line that I saw, and this goes to practice, this goes to what Dan Bilesma has been saying, is when we have a healthy Andre Burakovsky, he's skating well, he's looking for opportunities. And we talked about this in the offseason. I felt that the difference between Berkey at times when he's playing for the Seattle Kraken and when he's playing for his national team is that the brother can skate. And he skates freely. He is also skating to get the puck from his teammates. He can skate very well to also create opportunities for his teammate, which we saw Tuesday night. But his skating fits into the philosophy, I think, very well of what Dan Bilesma wants. And we've been hearing from Dan Bilesma, who of course knows Andre Burakovsky's game, but he's been with Andre Burakovsky as a part of the Kraken for the last few days and has been saying it as much. And so I'm not going back on anything that I say. I don't want us to put everything in the Berkey basket, not to be confused with a Birkin bag. Anyway, I don't want us putting everything in the Berkey basket. And not just a healthy, because a lot of people, myself included, have talked about his health. Can't always rely on Andre Burakovsky. It's just one of those things. I'm not saying it to be unkind to him. However, we have to acknowledge that he has not been healthy. It's not just a healthy Andre Burakovsky, which obviously I think all of Kraken Nation, we will take, right? We want a healthy Berkey. It's also an engaged Berkey, a locked in, if you will, Andre Burakovsky, a motivated Andre Burakovsky, a version of Andre Burakovsky that doesn't feel like he has to carry the weight of an entire offense, which, and again, even if you put the injuries on the shelf, which is particularly hard for some stretches for the Seattle Kraken, but even if you put the injuries outside of Burakovsky to the side, has Andre Burakovsky been set up to play with players that empower him to do what he does best on the ice? I think that's a valid question. And as someone who, for the majority of the times that I'm watching Burakovsky, has watched him on the Seattle Kraken, I think I'm just starting to unearth what is like the Berkey cheat code, right? What is he super, super good at within the context of our system? And it's still early. It's still preseason. And him with Jaden Schwartz and with Ben Meyers was something pretty cool. If you look at the stats for that game, that was the production line. That's who was getting it done. And, I'll take that. I will take that. I do think that Yanni Gourde had some, as I like to say, brushes of brilliance. And, we'll see how that goes down the road. But Andre Burakovsky, an assist. There you go. Ben Meyers with the goal. And Schwartzy also gets an assist there. So not much going offensively, and some really great chances from the line with Meyers, Schwartz, and Burakovsky. some near misses. What I liked also from that line is that you saw that there were multiple attempts, which when you look at the box score, let me go back to the recap here, to the side here. When you look at the shots on goal, and you have 19 shots on goal for the Seattle Kraken to 26 for the Vancouver Canucks. And I've talked about Jaden Schwartz and kind of not just garbage time, but a net front presence before. His health has been a little bit of an issue. But it wasn't just Jaden Schwartz in front of the net, traffic in front of the net. It's also attacking with numbers. And we're going to hear from Ben Meyers. We're going to hear from Dan Bilesman next. That comes from being fast. That comes from being aggressive. And that was missing for me in a big way. The Calgary Flame, lackluster. Now, some of that may be some nerves for the young Bucks, but there were veterans there as well. And it just looked like a bunch of guys kind of skating. Like when you go to pickup games, I would assume it's the same in hockey. I've never played pickup hockey before. You go to a pickup game, basketball, even like, you have to grab significantly more people, but you play a pickup game of softball, baseball, whatever. You're still feeling things out. Now, as a woman, I have the added bonus of either not getting past the ball, so I lean into defense, or people telling me, "Oh, you should stand here. You should stand here." And I'm like, I think I got this. I played college softball. I know how fast I am, at least this version of me, and I know how to track a ball down. So I'm going to go ahead and sit where I'm going to sit. And some of that is, again, there's some undertones for me personally, but if you don't know what to anticipate from your teammate, you're going to go with what you know. And that makes total sense. This second unit, they seemed, and obviously they had more time, but the systems were falling into place. There was a little bit of better communication. And yes, you want to be able to showcase what you can do. And a part of what you need to be able to do your job effectively is to get your teammates involved. So I think we saw a little bit more of that, but let's hear from Dan Bilesman, get his thoughts after the game Tuesday night.
Not bad. Could be better.
Dan, you've talked about your desire to have your team play fast. It felt like a fast start, and this is a Canucks team that wants to play fast as well. How did you feel that give and take went at even strength play?
Yeah, even strength, I thought there was a lot of good from our team, just both in, where we played and how we played. Executionally, it was going north and quick, and got to the offensive zone, had a few chances there throughout the lineup with it. So, 5-on-5, it was a pretty good game from us. It's a preseason game, but the game had some emotion in it, and I think it was, largely due to our compete. The guys were battling, and you love to see the energy in the game. Preseason is a time to take some penalties, so you can get on the penalty kill, and it's got to be practice as well. And you only really get those reps live in a game, so we too many from us tonight in that regard. Too many men's, and the ref had a pretty good angle, I guess, on Joey playing the puck in the trapezoid, but it's too many at the end of the day. At the end of the day, they score the 2 power play goals, and that's the difference in the game. I told Berkey I've loved his skating in the first 3/4 of the day at the camp. He's really impressed me with his speed and with his skating, and it's clearly there. They were really effective as a unit, and Monty just has got a ton of swagger and ton of emotion playing the game with, and it was evident.
Ton of swagger, ton of emotion, a little sandpaper, which actually, thank you, Allison Lucan, for adding that sandpaper element to your final buzzer. This is the headline, final buzzer, boxed in Vancouver. Sub-headline, Kraken play with pace and sandpaper. New addition, Ben Meyers scores, but 2 Canuck power play goals give 3-1 win to Vancouver. So go check out that final buzzer by Allison Lucan. You just heard Allison. Piper was also there asking questions to the players. And we'll hear from Ben Meyers coming up. But again, on today's episode, I want us to just think ahead because we're going to see this Vancouver team again. We just heard from Dan Bylsma. The power play goals were the difference. So we're going to see a new lineup, certainly for the Kraken. I would assume we'll see some changes for the Vancouver Canucks. And that's what makes like for likes, even when we have head-to-heads, a little bit difficult because it's new personnel. But we're going to see, some other players be able to step up. We haven't seen Dunn, even though we have seen Larson. I told you they might be experimenting with the D pairs. Anyway, we're going to have a new lineup. We're going to have another chance. We're going to have more experience under the belt, a few practices under the belt. And so I'll just give you a few things that I'm looking at when it comes to comparing this Canucks game on the road to the home game forthcoming, as we are almost halfway through the preseason. How time flies. Let's get into that coming up on today's episode of Locked On Kraken. Today's episode also brought to you by our friends Indeed. We're driven by the search for better. That's why we're going to talk about how the Seattle Kraken can be better knowing you're going to play the same opponent. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data. A matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. And you can ditch the busy work when you hire with Indeed. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences. So the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast, Locked On Kraken. Again, head to Indeed.com/LOCKEDON. Terms and conditions do apply. But if you need to hire, then you need Indeed. Thanks as always for making us a part of your daily destination, Locked On Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. You're not going to want to miss Locked On NHL. You can have the previews or the conversations around the Pacific Division are every Tuesday. Every other Friday, I join you for the Women's Hockey Spotlight. And there's so much. Those are just the things that I think, because you're a Locked On listener, a Locked On Kraken listener, you might enjoy. But check out any of our shows on the NHL channel. And, of course, be on the lookout for some special squad casts now that the season is just, several days away. We're ticking down from that 20 days or something, however many days Dan Bylsma has to get this Kraken squad, to build a habit. But we heard a little bit from Dan Bylsma in the first segment. I want you to hear from Ben Meyers, just because I think he had a great game. Dan was very impressed with him, and he was the lone goal scorer. Now, we're seeing some young players or some players that, that haven't had opportunities with the Seattle Kraken before make an impact. And that is a part of the process. So this is the preseason, so we don't want to get too, worked up about it. And, is it time for the youth movement? Is it time for the youth movement? I don't know that we know just yet. And again, some of this is the personnel that's on the ice is not a like for like it's all veterans, it's all young, younger prospects, it's all prospects that are kind of at that bubble or almost guaranteed to make their way in. So there's still a lot going on. We needed to be a lot better than we were in the first preseason game. We got better, not great, in the second preseason game. So honestly, if I see progress, even though it's not exactly the same units going out there, I would be happy with that, because that's what you have to do even in games, right? Again, played baseball, softball. If you strike out in the, first 3 innings in whatever the rotation is, batting the batting lineup, the expectation is that you will come to your teammates or at minimum your coaches and say, hey, this is what I saw. I wasn't successful at this. This is what I think. That's a part of your job. You couldn't get the ball in play. Okay, fine. What did you learn? How can you make your teammate better so that their first at bat or their second at bat is better than your first and second at bat? So that's what I'm looking for. I have seen it so far, and I get the sense that that is critically important to Dan Bylsma, which I really, really like. Every time he talks, he's talking about how to get better. And I know everything sounds like a comparison, and it kind of is. But if Dave Haxel and his staff were having those conversations, they weren't having them with us. So I can only tell you what I know as far as what's being reported. But that was absent, in my estimation, from what Dave Haxel was talking about with media. And it was inconsistent, in my estimation, under the last regime. And I'm hoping that that consistency is one of the things that we can talk about even in the preseason. All right, let's hear from Ben Meyers.
No, I think my game can fit in really well. The team just wants to play fast and get up the rink and not spend too much time in our O-zone and really get on the forecheck, and I think that suits my game. So, just trying to get acclimated with everything and, contributing.
Yanni kind of alluded to that might have been a little bit of a set play maybe that created the goal. Tell us what you saw. Berkey pushes that puck up and then you get the cross zone pass.
Yeah. I just saw the puck get stretched to Berkey, and then Schwartzy beat his guy, and then I kind of noticed that I had my guy beat as well, and then just went right to the net, and Schwartzy and Berkey both just made incredible plays, as well as the D too.
Berkey is a player who's had finally a healthy offseason and has come in really strong to this camp. What did you see from him? How fun was it to play with him?
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome. He was moving his feet out there, and obviously he can skate with the best of them. So just a fun player to play with, and a guy, you want the puck in his hands.
Yeah, thank you
Awesome.
so much.
Thank you.
So, I mean, again, really great stuff that we're getting from that Burakovsky line. So what does that look like in the regular season? Well, to be determined. But again, speaking of determined, the determination. Are we going to up the ante when it comes to the efficiency, the determination, the urgency that we're seeing from the Seattle Kraken? Those are just some of the things that I'm looking for personally, because those are things that you can impact regardless of your roster, regardless of your opponent, regardless of if the games count or they don't. Urgency, efficiency, and determination. All of those are what make good defense also. But you have to have that grit. You have to have that sandpaper. More sandpaper. Maybe we over-sanded in some areas, but improvements. I think I'll have a stronger assessment of how I'm feeling, early returns, about this roster, about the Disco Dan era after the next game, especially since we're playing the Vancouver Canucks again. I say especially because we're playing the Canucks again, and also we're likely going to play a different lineups. And we're going to have a different lineup, they're going to have a different lineup. So a little bit of a grain of salt there. That being said, both teams are working out the systems that they will deploy in the regular season. So there is a little bit of comparison that you can do compared to Calgary and Vancouver preseason games. So I'm excited to dive into that. We're going to have Zame on the podcast again this week. Until then, you know what I'm going to say. Be kind to yourself. I took some, an extended break yesterday, also nursing a foot injury, and I'm really feeling the injury these days. So taking it nice and easy. And that was my way of being kind to myself. Be kind to one another. Oh, so much going on in the world. So be kind to others and hold fast, stay true, and loud and proud we say once again against Vancouver, let's go Kraken. I will catch you on the next episode. Peace out, everybody.